Hi, and welcome to this new experimentation I'm doing on my YouTube channel. I'll be trying to make some video in English, and here is the first one, which is also a new series on my YouTube channel, uh, which will be ZOKURU'S Hot Takes. The aim here is to talk about stuff that maybe I'm um, alone to think, or maybe only a few other people think like me, and I will try to explain my point of view and maybe try to convince you or just try to expand how you can think about the game and make you just think about the game, and maybe that will be helpful for you when you're building or just playing the game casually. And yeah, that's basically the idea. So what's the topic today? The topic will be why is Venusaur one of the best Pokemon of all time competitively? And yeah, I will be trying my best to explain that to you. Okay, so first thing, we'll start with RBY, and then we will do on the chronological order. We will make GSC, ADV, DPP, Black and White, Horace, Sun Moon, and then we will do Sword and Shield. So yeah, let's get started right away. Um, Venusaur in RBY is a terrific mount to face because it possesses Swords Dance and Sleep Powder. Uh, Venusaur might not actually be one of the top threats of the metagame, but those two moves are super powerful. Sleep Powder, you know how broken sleep is in RBY. You don't act the turn where you wake up, and you can sleep like 6 or 7 turns, I don't remember, but it's something pretty absurd, right? And you have Swords Dance, which you can abuse your own sleep with and try to set up and do huge damage with that. Um, how are you gonna deal damage with Venusaur? That is the question, right? And you have Hyper Beam here, which doesn't need to recharge if you make KO with it in RBY, and therefore if you can set up 1 or 2 Swords Dance, it will be very hard for your opponent to stop you from killing every Pokemon on their team. You also have a Stab Razor Leaf, which is basically an auto crit move, and therefore even though it has only a low power, it's actually a high power move because it will crit every time. And for example, that forces Snorlax to spam rest in front of you, so you can abuse Snorlax on the rest turn to click Swords Dance, and if they don't, they will die from you. And if you can set up on Snorlax with Swords Dance when they are clicking rest, then forcing them to rest again, you can set up to +6 or +4, which is pretty good. And if Snorlax doesn't want to play this rest loop, then they have to switch out with 0 turns left, which is very good for you and for your Tauros or whatever it is. And anyway, they will have to switch in on Razor Leaf, and maybe they will have to deal with Sleep Powder, right, if you didn't sleep anything already. And if you did, and if they switch in a paralyzed Pokemon to avoid being slept, then maybe Razor Leaf plus Hyper Beam will do enough damage to knock them out. So yeah, Venusaur may be very threatening. Obviously it has some weaknesses, like Blizzard from Starmie will kill if it's a critical hit. It is weak to psychic attacks, and it's not the fastest Pokemon in the tier. 80 base power is pretty nice actually, it outspeed Cloyster and Executor and a lot of Pokemons, but it will have trouble dealing with stuff like Zapdos or Tauros. Uh, the thing is, Tauros and Zapdos are two Pokemon you may be willing to trade actually, and Venusaur will be often paired with Rhydon, so actually Zapdos is not an issue. But yeah, you might be able to trade Tauros, which is one of the good traits about Venusaur, is that it can trade versus the best Pokemon in the tier. But yeah, the glaring weakness Venusaur has is that Gengar completely stops it, and you can do nothing about it. Articuno and Moltres are very good against it, but it's not like they are much played, so the best answer in the game and the most played is actually Gengar. Jinx can be a problem, but it's slept or paralyzed early, so it might not be a problem. Also, if there is an Alakazam or a Starmie that aren't paralyzed and they are full health, that can be a problem. But all in all, Venusaur is not a big threat, but it is absolutely a viable Pokemon in RBY, and it can win games alone, so that is why I think Venusaur is good in RBY. Um, there will be... I will talk about that now, because before we go to Gen 2. Venusaur is almost never a top threat in overuse, but it is almost always viable enough to have its own niche, and it is strong enough that there is an appeal in using it, and you will be able to win a lot of games just because you have a Venusaur and your opponent isn't prepared enough. And it's not actually a cheese. Even in bad matchup, Venusaur will always do something, and that's why what I like about this Pokemon, it is consistent, and given the right matchup, it will absolutely destroy your opponent, and they can't do nothing about it. And I think that's a very good trait in competitive Pokemon, is when you have a low floor, but you have a super high ceiling, and that is Venusaur. The thing is, it won't reach its ceiling a lot, but because its floor is so low, you know you can count on your Venusaur to do things. And we'll go in GAC right away, and obviously it will run leftovers, and one of the sets I like the most is actually Synthesis War and either Toxic or Poison Powder. I like Poison Powder most because of the PPs, and so you can outstall or PP stall the rest on your opponent's side, the rest PPs. So it will be very good versus opposing stalls, because you have Aurora, and if you have your spikes, it's pretty much deadly. And Poison Powder will be hard to outstall. Also, Razor Leaf has a lot of PPs too, so it will be hard for any team to switch consistently on a stab while you have your Skarmory and so on. But the thing is, you can click them and your opponent will be forced to switch into their answer, and they won't be able to stall all PPs out, so it eases your prediction, and you don't have to care about how many Earthquake do I have, and stuff like that. There is another moveset that is pretty okay. I saw Earthworm make a lot of win on the ladder with that. I don't really like it myself. I think it was Giga Drain, HP Ice, Growth, and I don't remember what was the last. No, it must have been HP Fire, right? No, maybe it doesn't care about Calm and Fortress. I don't remember what it was. No, I think it was HP Ice, because Zapdos. He wanted to hit Zapdos, and oh, I think it was Light Screen, right? I think it was Gross Light Screen or Reflect. So it can, yeah, I think it was Reflect, so he can deal better with Snorlax. Yeah, I think it was something like that. And maybe there was another move that he used. But yeah, basically Growth with HP Ice is pretty good, because you will be able to hit stuff like Nidoking and Zapdos for super effective damage. And well, let's say this set, right? This very specific set. let's say the opposing team is the super standard one that is used nowadays, which is Nidoking, Gengar, Tyranitar, Snorlax, Cloyster, and Zapdos. Actually, this Venusaur set can beat 1v1 and beat even more any of those. Well, maybe it doesn't beat. I think it doesn't beat Nidoking, but if it's set up beforehand and the sleep clause is already on, I think Nidoking doesn't beat Venusaur at +1. So this Venusaur with Reflect and Growth and Setup, etc. If Snorlax is a bit weakened and you took Gengar out with like your Potion Tyranitar or something like that, this Venusaur will basically just win the game alone, bar if Zapdos crits you or Thunder Para you. But yeah, if let's say Zapdos is sleeping, or maybe, yeah, you can also use Sleep Powder, but I don't like Sleep Powder in GSC because Sleep Talk is everywhere, so yeah, that's I'd better para stuff and force them to rest, so I can abuse the rest turn plus the 2 sleep turns, right? I think that's better than root right clicking Sleep Powder. It's different with something like Jinx or Nidoking because you want to disturb your opponent and kill what they want to accomplish, but I also think that he's supposed to set up like that. I don't like to use a sleep move. But yeah, basically, I think Reflect is pretty cool. Probably Light Screen is cool too, but it's less good versus Snorlax, so let's go with Reflect. And yeah, it has a huge potential. I didn't actually build with that, and maybe I should try it more. But yeah, it's... I can't tell you it's the best thing in the world, but +1 made a lot of win with that on the ladder, so it is probably alright. My preference is on this set, the defensive Venusaur one, because it will beat every last Pokemon Boom Offense can throw at you. It will beat Marowak after Spikes, if I'm not mistaken. It will switch in on a Machamp without any problem, and it will beat Vaporeon. Yeah, you can face that odd Blizzard or Ice Beam Vaporeon set, but yeah, it's not like it will be very threatening in the end, especially if you use that install. Yeah, it's not like it's a real problem. So, and yeah, War is super good. Actually, it lets you free spaces on your team, so you don't have to use War on your Golem or your Tyranitar or something like that, or your Raikou. Poison Powder, I think, is very good. Forces Zapdos who want to switch on you to sleep, forces Snorlax to sleep, forces Machamp and Pokemon like that to get out really quick and don't play games with you, because Poison Powder will just absolutely destroy them. And Synthesis with this great bulk that Venusaur has, because Venusaur take like 35% on Ice Beam from Nidoking, I think. So Synthesis plus this very good bulk that Venusaur has will make it so it will be super hard to kill, and with Roar and Razor Leaf, it will mess up your opponent momentum. It is very annoying to deal with, and I think there is team structure to make with that will be very good in future GSC. I have a team, but I think it's not refined enough. But I will work on making Venusaur better in GSC. Later, we'll talk about Gen 3 now. There is a lot of things you can run on Venusaur. You can run Giga Drain, but I've seen Razor Leaf still get played in ADV2. There is a World that is still played sometime. You have obviously Leech Shield, which is actually good in ADV. It wasn't good in JC and RBY, but it's really good in ADV. You have Sleep Powder, obviously, which is super good in ADV. Sleep is almost broken in this tier, but you don't want to miss on the Sleep Powder here. You have also HP Ice and HP Fire. Often it is played with Magneton because you can beat Skarmory and actually use Hidden Power Ice or Roar. Leash Shield makes your opponent switch a lot, and if you can combine that with Roar, which will mess up a lot with how your opponent will switch around Leash Shield and Razor Leaf and Sleep Powder, you can cause havoc if you have spikes up. Also, there is another thing I was thinking about, but I kind of forgot. Yeah, War is also useful versus Suicune. That's what I was thinking about, because Suicune with Ice Beam isn't super common at the moment. It's played, but it's not the most common set. And Roar plus Leech Shield can actually really mess up with Suicune, which is pretty good because you don't want Suicune to pistol all your Leech Shields or your Giga Drain if you are playing Giga Drain. So yeah, Roar is good for that too. Also, if you cannot kill something that is trying to set up in front of you and you cannot Sleep Powder them and Leash Shield won't be enough, you can just stay in and click Roar and they won't be able to set up, and you will go on the game and try to win it with something else. Even if you have to sack Venusaur, it can prevent setup, which is pretty huge in my opinion. And yeah, that's why I think Venusaur is pretty good in ADV. There isn't much else to say because Venusaur is pretty straightforward in this generation, and it just does what you all did in your casual playthrough on your cartridge, which is, yeah, I will Leash Shield my opponent, I will Sleep Powder, and then I will use my stab, and we'll see. Yeah, if you played Fire Red Leaf Green as a kid and you picked Bulbasaur as a starter, that's what you did, and you should know how that works. Then we'll talk a bit about DPP. Actually, Venusaur got some plays in DPP. It isn't played anymore because Latias was a huge hit to it, and actually it wasn't even played that much before Latias got reintroduced in the tier, because it's actually maybe the worst gen for Venusaur, but it was kind of a little Rose Raid. Just play that and you use that with like Heatran and spikes, like maybe you have a Skarmory, or what else does get spikes? Yeah, you could use Fortress, I guess, even though it's not really my thing. And you just click Leash Shield, threaten the opening team. Maybe you can use stuff like Sludge Bomb too if you want. I don't really know what. You can use Earthquake if you want to get Heatran. It was more of an offensive mon that aims at just mess up. Well, it's always what Venusaur does in every generation, right? It just try to mess up your opponent's momentum and gain advantage from that. But even more in DPP, because in DPP, because the games are so short compared to other tier, if you are not facing stall, I mean, you want to avoid switching as much as you can, because a switch is a missed opportunity, a greater missed opportunity compared to other gens, because there is less turns. So the more turns you switch, the more percentage of turns you're not attacking. So the more percentage of turns you're not killing Pokemon in your opponent team. So you want to avoid switching in DPP generally, and that's what Venusaur niche was, is that you don't switch, you just throw Leech Shield, Sleep Powder, Giga Drain, HP Fire, and if your opponent doesn't have a good answer to it, they get messed up really badly. That was, it's a bit like Breloom, right? But Breloom hit with Focus Punch, so it's obviously better. It was also a cute Breloom answer, So yeah, that's yeah. It's a bit like defensive Celebi, but it doesn't heal and it has Sleep Powder. It's a bit like Rose Raid, but it's bulkier. It's a bit of a mixed bag with every also grass type in the tier, and I think it was pretty alright. It saw a tiny bit of plays a few years in the back, but now it's completely dead, and I don't think we will see it again. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that little piece of Gen 4, not history, but that little piece of Gen 4 that Venusaur was. And now we are talking about the real deal, the big stuff, Venusaur in Gen 5. And actually, Venusaur in Gen 5 isn't used at all, because what was good about Venusaur in Gen 5 was banned a long time ago. It was chlorophyll, because under sun and with growth, this thing was considered too good for the game, for the metagame, and therefore we banned chlorophyll plus drought, like we banned drizzle plus swift swim, I think it's that. And yeah, I won't talk a lot about Venusaur. It has a lot of coverage in Gen 5, and you don't want to deal with that. Actually, it was using Life Orb, and you can use like Giga Drain, HP Fire, Earthquake. You can use Sludge Bomb, you can use a lot of stuff. I don't know if Weather Ball was compatible with Growth. I think it wasn't, right? Oh no, it was Chlorophyte that was unavailable with Weather Ball. I knew it was something like that. So you had to use HP Fire, but even then it was really threatening and really hard to play against Venusaur, and that's why it's not allowed nowadays in the Black and White OU metagame. And now we'll talk a bit about Mega Venusaur, which got placed pretty well in tournaments actually. I know a lot of players that used it to great success, notably lefties and maybe other people, but it had the Sludge Bomb, Leash Shield, Synthesis plus X set. Also, you could use Synthesis 3 attack. And the thing is, Venusaur was actually a tank, which is it could beat really specific Pokemon in the tier, and it was really hard to come versus it. And even if it couldn't switch into a lot of Pokemon, it could beat a lot of them 1v1, and it was hard to switch in on Venusaur. Like, if you wanted to switch your Venusaur or your Talonflame on Venusaur and you took Sludge Bomb Poison, that was over, your Talonflame was dead. If you wanted as a stall to beat Venusaur, how do you beat that? You have to PP stall it, but then Sludge Bomb can poison your Pokemon. You can go Skarmory because HP Fire is a big deal. Chansey will get seeded. Also, it has Sick Fat after Mega Evolving, which means it isn't weak to Ice and Fire anymore. So its bulk become really, really good. As you can see, it has a lot of defense and a lot of special defense. And it wasn't the best thing in the world actually, but if you slept on dealing with Venusaur, you would be destroyed by this Pokemon. I know I talk about that a lot, that if you don't prepare for Venusaur, you will be destroyed whatever the generation is. But, well, hear me. It is Grass Poison, which is a very common typing, but it isn't played that much in competitive Pokemon. Like, if I do Grass Poison, there is Among Us, but Among Us doesn't just heal with Synthesis all the way up just like that. Well, it doesn't do that, so Among Us will be dealt a different way than Venusaur, and it doesn't hurt that much. And that's all. That's the only other, and was right a bit in DPP. And before Among Us, like in ATV, in DPP, in RBY, in GSC, there is no other Pokemon with that typing that is played competitively. So people don't really know how to interact with that, or don't prepare to interact with that. And also, Among Us doesn't have Lychee, doesn't have Earthquake, doesn't really hurt a lot, even though it uses Sludge Bomb and HP Fire the same. Gigadron doesn't do as much damage and doesn't heal as much. And you know how hard it is to switch in on Among Us. Mega Venusaur didn't run Sleep Powder a lot because there is 4 move slot syndrome, as we call it, which is that you can only have 4 moves, and Sleep Powder was not that good after Gen 5, like Gen 6 and the recent ones, because grass types are immune to that, so you just want to hit hard with Venusaur in Gen 6 and 7 and tank stuff like Keldeo, stuff like it was actually a decent switch into Mega Mobile in Gen 7, which is good too. You beat the odd Breloom that Sis plays a bit sometimes. It's alright versus Crodont. I said Keldeo, 1v1 you beat Lopunny, which is pretty cool. You can come on Manaphy if it doesn't have Psychic. Manectric does nothing to you, so if they don't click Volt Switch and you come, you will probably cause Havoc in their team. Or maybe you will poison. There was knockoff too, because it's a good catch-all to Latios, Tornadus, Itran, Ferrothorn, and everything that want to pivot on you, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, also you could come versus Ferrothorn and click HP Fire, Giga Drain, whatever, and you have to answer it really quickly. Basically that was Gen 6 and Gen 7. It played pretty much the same way. And then we had Gen 8, and Gen 8 is the comeback of Chlorophyll Venusaur in Sun. And Sun was pretty good at some point in the Gen 8 metagame. It's not the case anymore because Cinderace is gone, but even in Gen 6 and Gen 7, when Sun was bad, Chlorophyll Venusaur on the Sun is actually one of the only Pokemon as a stall player that I don't want to see, because whatever I do, I will be 6-0'd by this stuff. In Gen 8, when Sun was good, I actually had to play this to beat Venusaur under Sun, and it wasn't even enough a lot of the time, so Venusaur may be the only Pokemon in the entire game that can do stuff outside of beating stall, because it's fast and it is hard, but it also completely demolishes stall because it is immune to toxic. You don't care about taking Thunder Wave versus stall or paralysis, and you will heal with Giga Drain, Life Orb at +6 or +5 or whatever on Blissey, and at +6 you will destroy everything and you cannot prevent that. So that's all for why I think Venusaur is one of the best competitive Pokemon of all time. Just because in every single generation, from the first one, it was able to be a nice threat and a way to catch your opponent off guard, while not being trying gimmicky stuff or trying to cheese your opponent. It's actually a good Pokemon that is usable and that you can build around, and it's not played that much because it's not one of the top Pokemon, and it's a bit overlooked because its Venusaur starter aren't that good except Swampert and all those things people will think when they think about Venusaur. They don't maybe don't think they don't understand, but I think they don't actually think about how Venusaur can mess up with the momentum and how that is very good in competitive Pokemon. And yeah, let me know what you think about my hot take in the comments below, and I will see you in another video. Goodbye everyone.